John Locke, Jeremy Bentham, Hume, Rousseau. These are all names we have heard on Lost, yet are also the names of some of the most important philosophers of modern times. Let's take a closer look at these four philosophers and discover how their writings and theories have influenced society. Hume was a Scottish philosopher and historian. He is most famous for the sort of empiricist skepticism he brought to our understanding of knowledge, which stressed that we cannot know anything beyond what we can experience through our senses. An atheist and religious skeptic, he argued that the source of morality is to be found in human sentiments rather than reason or religion. One of the great philosophical psychologists, his efforts to scientifically understand human nature remain influential today, and he is credited with paving the way for contemporary cognitive science, the study of mind and intelligence.
David Hume proposed to examine morality in a way that had never been examined before, purely scientifically. It's important to note that for Hume, the existence of morality, the existence of moral right or wrong, doesn't in any way depend upon a god or anything supernatural. And at the time, that was a very controversial and scandalous way of approaching morality. As a result of this, he was denied a teaching chair throughout his life that he sought, because he was considered to be not sufficiently a friend of morality.
Next, let's take a look at the real John Locke and see if he bears any resemblance to Lost's John Locke. Locke started out as a medical doctor, but became well known as a British philosopher, active in politics and government. Locke believed society should be run by majority rule instead of one absolute ruler. His concept of a democratic state was very influential to the founding fathers of the United States, who incorporated Locke's social contract theory and ideas into the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence.
One of the things that Locke is famous for is his letter of toleration. Locke basically argues that there should be a separation between church and state. He thought that a government, a society that didn't tolerate religious differences would actually be a lot worse off than a society that did. This was landmark, and this is, I think, one of the things that probably influenced the separation of church and state in the U.S. Constitution.
And what about Locke's alter ego, Jeremy Bentham? Bentham was a British philosopher, very involved in politics. He was a champion of legal and prison reform and was the founding thinker of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism states that the way to judge the morality of any action is to look at its consequences. Is it more likely to work to the greatest advantage for the greatest amount of people than any other action one can perform in its place? If not, then it is not justifiable. This is called the greatest happiness principle and is the founding principle of Bentham's utilitarianism.
Now, one of the ways that he thought he could maximize happiness is by donating his body to science, right? And not just to science, but to future generations. He wanted to have his body preserved. He had all his organs donated to scientific research, which is pretty unusual at that time. And he asked to be mummified, essentially. So his head was mummified, and his skeleton was kept and kind of put back together. And right now, and for over 100 years, he's been in kind of a special room in the University College in London, where there he is, Jeremy Bentham.
Interesting that Bentham's body was given a new life after his death. Now, let's meet the real Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a controversial writer, primarily concerned with the thought of liberty. Rousseau, along with Locke, was known for his social contract theories. The focus of much of Rousseau's thought can be found in the first sentence of his most well-known work, Social Contract. Man is born free, but everywhere is in chains. Rousseau believed that people are better off living in a state somewhere between completely wild and completely civilized.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Swiss, he calls himself a citizen of Geneva. He's not so much a philosopher as he is a critic of culture, more broadly. He's not professionally trained. Rousseau was a person of original ideas, but he labored under what we would now think of as a kind of shaky mental state for most of his life. He converted religion back and forth several times. And later in his life, he had to go live with Hume. And David Hume was his friend. And he sort of took him in until he couldn't stand him anymore and finally had to throw him out.